Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Blue Oval Podcast. My name is Garrett Zatlin, and yes, if you are hearing my voice, that means there is no Ben today, and yes, it is a solo podcast. Was going to try to get someone on. I was traveling all weekend, and now I'm finally here, finally able to sit down, and as many of you know who follow the Stroud Report, trying to get freshman class rankings out from all divisions is very challenging. So, I'm going to do a solo podcast today. And we're going to cover the indoor track season, the true competitive portion of the season that's coming up. It's going to be me. I'm going to try 30, 40 minutes, and we're just going to keep it light. We're going to keep it just a riff. We're going to have fun with it. We're just going to jump around to a handful of things that I want to talk about, preview the season, talk about a few title contenders. Maybe I'll have a few bold takes, a few bold predictions at the end. But before we keep going here, I want to give a shout out to everyone who's leaving a rating and review on Apple and Spotify, as well as subscribing on YouTube. We're now up to 104 reviews on Apple and 183 on Spotify, which I think is a sizable jump. So thank you. We were kind of stalling there for a little bit, and y'all came through for us. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, usually this is kind of the part of the podcast where I get to monologue with Ben and say something kind of dumb and silly. And even though he's not here today, I do think that he'll inevitably listen to this episode. And so I just want him to know that I had one of my friends who occasionally listens to the podcast, despite his limited knowledge of this space, and just say, hey, just so you know, Ben is wrong. You're right. I don't think that the cat can be put back in the bag for the NCAA when it comes to the extension of JUCO eligibility, which we covered in our last podcast episode, because there's no way that this gets any more refined. You're right, Ben is wrong. And I literally have the text. And if I can somehow get that as like a screenshot onto the YouTube video here, I'm going to add it. So shout out to you, and my buddy thinks you're wrong, which of course he's very biased, but so be it. Okay, let's chat about indoor track season. It's here. The first real competitive weekend is coming up here this Friday, Saturday, and it's not going to be a ton, but it's certainly going to be something, right? Washington hosts a good bid. I think Arkansas gets involved with an early season opener. Colorado usually finds a way to get some fast milers in. I know they just had a handful of sub-4 guys via conversions just take place. But we're going to jump around. We're going to talk about the big picture of everything and just kind of jump around to a few different events, athletes, and whatnot. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about here was the men's 800. I have not had such a hard time trying to figure out the men's 800, specifically on the indoor track. I haven't had this hard of a time figuring out the event, who the favorites are, in probably almost 9 years since I started writing about this sport. Not even since TSR started, but since I started writing. And it's been quite a bit. It's been quite a while since this has last given me so much challenge from an analysis standpoint. So as we all know, Yusuf Bizimana, if you've read the rankings, is gone. He is not coming back. And that kind of leaves the door open a little bit, especially with Shane Cohen also gone. Rivaldo Marshall was last year's men's indoor national meet 800-meter champion. But that was also with the two pre-race favorites, Nathan Green and Bizimana, failing to advance out of the prelims. Now, I don't ever want to say that someone winning a national title is fluky, especially when it comes to multiple rounds. I struggle to believe that you can just fluke your way to a national title. But I do think last year's indoor 800-meter field in that final was relatively light. I have to admit, I do think it was relatively light. And if there was a year where you were going to see an underdog or a sleeper like Rivaldo Marshall come through, that was going to be the year, especially with, again, Bizimana and Nathan Green not advancing to those finals. Well, now Marshall is at Arkansas. He has since transferred there. He has a 145 PR that he ran this past spring. He didn't have nearly as good of a spring season, and you couldn't really put your finger on why that was, but it showed on the national stage. I don't believe he made it out of the prelims at the outdoor national meet. But is he the national title favorite this year? And I don't think I can say yes. And so then naturally that makes you wonder, okay, so then that's Sam Whitmarsh, right? The Texas A&M star who ran 144 last year. And to that I'd say, are we sure? Are we sure it would be Sam Whitmarsh? Because don't get me wrong, he was phenomenal. He was just aerobically more fit than everyone else. Yes, Shane Cohen peaked better than anyone else, had the best momentum, the best kick. I mean, his national title win, his momentum that he gained in the postseason last spring was phenomenal. But from a pure day one, most fit kind of guy, Sam Whitmarsh was that guy, and he's been that guy. The challenge, however, is that he has a few things going against him. One, he's not nearly as good, or at least I should say, not nearly as proven on the indoor oval compared to the outdoor oval. In fact, I'm not even confident that he made the national meet last year. Let me take a look here. Yeah, he did not make the indoor national meet last year. So there's that. Two, he has had a few challenges with his health in the past. He's been open about a heart condition that he took him out of commission for, I think, about a year. So there's that aspect. And then the other aspect is he was supposed to win last year's outdoor national title in the 800 meters, and he was upset. Would I argue with anyone who said that he's the favorite for this winter? No, I wouldn't. But I don't know if I have the same conviction of him being a favorite as I did in the spring. And so you naturally then say, okay, well, what about Oregon's new guy? Koitoi Kadali, I think it is. Kadali. He's run 142 for 800 meters and was an Olympian for Kenya earlier this past year. Well, naturally, just based on pure fitness and pure accolades, Kadali has to be the national title favorite, right? And I'm not sure, I still don't see that. You know why? Because there's only been one instance where he's broken 145. And it was when he ran 142. That's right. His next fastest time from 142 is 145. It's about a whole 3 seconds, maybe closer to 2.5. But you get what I'm saying here. All of a sudden, it's now like, well, wait, what version of Kadali are we going to get? He's not that experienced on the indoor oval. His resume, at least according to World Athletics, is very thin in that area. So what does that mean now as he enters the NCAA? We saw his I think over-ambitiousness at the Boston U season opener when he ran that 1K. And yes, he won, and he won by a second or two, I want to say. Ran 220. Clearly the most fit guy in that field. But he came through 800 meters in like 151, 152, and he hit a wall. And there was a brief moment where I thought he might get caught. And as many of you who listen to the podcast may know, I am a very big believer that international athletes, despite how crazy talented they may be, need a year or two to get acclimated to the NCAA and specifically the tactics and the strategy and the racing IQ that is necessary to compete for wins, especially on the national stage, depending on the conference stage as well. And with Kadali, there's not enough consistency and there's not enough proof of indoor experience, and there's still tactical understanding that needs to be had. So I'm not ready to say that he's the national title favorite yet. Are we ready to say that Tanoda Matsada is of Georgetown? He just ran 354 in the mile. But are we ready to say that he's the guy yet? I don't know if I am. Finley McClear's not running this season. I don't know how good we feel about Handel Robon or Abdul Ali Hassan. Could Nick Plant take that next step up? Is there someone else I'm missing? Maybe Tyrese Taylor, Arkansas's newest JUCO addition. He's run 145. Could he be in the mix? Believe it or not, and I can't believe I'm saying this, if Nathan Green wanted to go run the 800 again this winter, and he won't contest that event at the national meet. I highly doubt it. But if he wanted to, I could see him doing it. And I think I would feel pretty good about him being my pick to win the national title. Or at least he would be the safest pick, I think. Maybe some people would say Whitmarsh. Again, wouldn't argue with you on that. Now, again, will Green drop back down to the 800 meters? Probably not. Not after he failed to get out of the prelims last year, but something to consider. I want to move off of that. And I want to talk about the women's 3K here. The women's 3K is really tricky. Last year, Parker Valby dominated. Livia Markovic close behind her in second, or as close behind as someone can realistically get. And when you kind of think about, the prior 3K winners of the women's indoor 3K, it's Valby, it's Tui. Let me go back to 2023. Yeah, Tui there in 2023. Let's go back to 2022, where I think she also won that title. No, she was second to Taylor Rowe, so on and so forth. So let's check 2021 here real quick. Who went back in 20? Oh, Wayman. There's clearly a lean for long distance stars who are able to emerge victorious, but there's also something to be said for women who are 3K mile specialists, right? Like Lauren Gregory back in 2021, she didn't win the national title, but she was 0.2 seconds off from beating Wayman. Taylor Rowe, she pulled off the upset. And at that time, she was more of a mile 3K talent than she was a 3K 5K talent. And she pulled off the upset win, while Tui got second. And, Valby's just an otherworldly dominant, right? But I think behind her, Markovic from last year's indoor national meet, some could argue that Markovic is more of a mile 3K runner than she is a 3K 5K runner. Again, I think that's up for debate, but the point stands. I'm not entirely confident that Doris Lemmenguhl will definitely win the women's 3K national title this winter. I'm not entirely confident that Pamela Kosgei or Amy Bunnage or Hilda Olamamwe will win the women's 3K indoor national title. When I think about who some of those women could be, could it be Lexi Halliday Lowry? Sure, but we don't really know what the status of her health is, right? And we think about, other women, what version of Riley Chamberlain are we going to see this season? I don't know. Despite an earlier loss back in December, I like Kaylee McCabe quite a lot of West Virginia. She just ran 8:46, but I think she has the best combination of mile and 3K prowess. She's still a juggernaut in the 5K, juggernaut in the cross-country course, as we just saw. I think McCabe is actually the most complete 3K talent. Again, maybe you could argue Shannon Flockhart. I don't think Flockhart has enough prior experience or success in the 3K for me to feel confident in saying that she can win the national title yet. Could she? Sure. But right now I like McCabe a lot. And I like Solana Yildiz a lot. And I like Maddie Elmore a lot. And as I kind of go through the rest of this list, as I look at other women, could Kimberly May move up? Sure. I don't think she's going to really truly contest the 3K. I think she'll more contest the mile. But as I kind of look through there, I think I'm almost feeling just as good about Appleton, about Ayeldes, about McCabe, as I am about the true aerobic-centric long-distance specialists like Lemmenguhl, like Olamamwe. I don't think it's the national title for the women's 3K is always as clear-cut as who is just aerobically more dominant. I do think people underestimate the level of speed and turnover that event takes. And I think the Boston U season opener was a great example of that. If you go back and watch that race, Flockhart kicked. She kicked really hard and beautifully executed that end of race finish to emerge as the top collegian. So That's something that was just kind of on the top of my head, and I was like, you know what? Is Doris Lemagol probably the favorite for the 3K? Yeah, I think when you run 14:52, Parker Valby's record, and convincingly win a national title in cross country over an elite field, you're probably still favored. But if someone, said, hey, gun to your head right now, who are you choosing? I would have to think about Lemagol versus McCabe a bit. And yes, I say that even as McCabe was not the top collegian at Boston U. So, men's mile. Let's chat about the men's mile here as I bounce around to where we were last year. Here we go. The men's mile is really fascinating to me. It's pretty difficult to figure out, mainly because Nico Young wasn't going to contest the mile anyways, despite his converted 348. But Luke Hauser's no longer in the NCAA. You have one big, tactical threat out. Anas Esai, no longer in the NCAA. He's out, and despite how I felt about his national meet performances, fitness-wise, he was just as much of a threat as anyone else. But he's out. Isaac Baston, out. Joe Wascom, out. Happen Samuel Parker Wolf won't do it. Nick Foster's out. Theo Quacks is out. Aiden Troutner does come back. But the point being is that now I think we have guys such as Adam Spencer as a national title favorite. We have Colin Solomon, and we have Nathan Green. And here's where one of my bold predictions comes in. I believe that the men's NCAA indoor mile national record of, and I just had it, I believe it was 350.39 from Cooper Tier back in 2021. I do believe that will fall. Now, it comes with a little bit of a caveat in saying, if you just brought up in one conversation just Adam Spencer, and you said, what are the chances that he will break the national record in the mile? Is it more than 50% or is it under 50%? I'd say under. And then in a separate conversation, if you said just Nathan Green, over or under 50% that he breaks the mile national record, I'd say under. Again, Colin Solomon, right? Liam Murphy, right? Ethan Strand, actually, in fact, after seeing his 3K national record. I would say about each of those men, that's probably less likely that they break the mile indoor national record. But between the five of them, and then maybe one international name who I'm not even thinking of, between 5 or 6 names, I think the chances of someone breaking the mile national record is pretty good. I like the chances. I like the probability on that. Because think about this. I mean, Adam Spencer was already running 352 last year. Now he has to drop 2 seconds, which is a lot. But he just had the best cross-country season, or at least the best national meet performance, I should say, of his cross-country career, just this past fall. And he's also a 331 guy over 1,500 meters. Colin Solomon nearly got the men's 1,500-meter national record last spring. Who's to say that he can't go after the 350 mark? Nathan Green just ran 740 for 3K. Clearly more fit aerobically. Could he go after it? He's run 334. He's run 351, I actually want to say. Is that true? He's run 353, I should say, on an oversized track. So, could he go after it and get it on a legal track? I don't think it's unrealistic. Who else am I missing here? Ethan Strand. I mean, he ran 333 for 1,500 meters, I want to say. Or maybe it was 335. I have to double check that. But he ran something absurdly fast at the Olympic trials over 1,500 meters. Same thing for Liam Murphy. Both men have clearly made improvements in their fitness. Would Strand be able to go get it? Would Murphy be able to go get it? Some would argue that those guys are more mile-centric, especially Strand. Although after that 3K, I don't know about that anymore. I think the the probability of one of those guys getting the mile national record, despite how insane it would be to see a 349, because basically that is what you are suggesting when I say someone breaks the national record, right? It's like, sure, they could run 350.38, right? Or 350.00 or 350.01, right? Anything between that does break the record. But if you're going to break 350.39, you're probably already getting pretty close to running under 350 to begin with. Like, the margin of error is not that large. So it's hard to kind of fathom. But Nico Young is not a miler. And yes, we can all argue about altitude conversions. I know. But he got a converted 348 last year. And he's A, not a miler, and B, even if you think that's too fast, fine, take off a second. It's still under 350. So I'm going to say someone breaks the record. And if I had to guess, it's probably Spencer. Probably. The most upsides is probably Salmon. But, I mean, realistically, I think 5 guys could get it. 5 or 6. So let's jump around here. Do you want to talk about DMR? We should talk about DMR. Let's go back to last year's indoor national meet as I attempt to get back these results here. There we go. Oklahoma State. If Oklahoma State wants, they can go win the national title again. They could. They bring back Brian Masao. They bring back Ryan Shoppy. I will see if they bring back Mehdi Yanori. They do. Mehdi Yanori just ran a 4:05 PR for the mile. And when you kind of look at everyone else, Georgetown is probably the one where you go, okay, what can Georgetown put together? Yeah, they were sneaky good last year, but are they going to be able to replicate the magic that they had last year? It's possible. They've got the names to do it. But Oklahoma State's just more competitive. Like, why would they not run the DMR 3K double again if you're Masao and Shoppy? They're both All-Americans, I believe, right? Let me double check that. Yeah, they were both All-Americans. Shoppy was 8th, Masao was 6th. We could talk about Virginia, but I don't think Virginia is going to give up Gary Martin in the mile 3K double, right? Or at least one of them. North Carolina, unlikely that Strand and Wolf are going to run it just like they didn't last year. Arkansas finds a ways to be competitive, but I still don't. I mean, I guess with Marshall and Tyrese Taylor, when you have 2 145 guys, that does get a little interesting. It's a bit of a different story. But I don't necessarily love who their milers could be. Maybe Ruben Reyna has a great season. But as I kind of go down the list, Indiana again always finds a way to upset me in the DMR. They always come through. Iowa State, again, same thing with them. Wisconsin won't run a stacked DMR. Washington could. It's not likely, but they could. Virginia Tech, they could run another fully stacked DMR, but is it going to be? Are they going to have grown enough? Maybe with George Cootie now, it's a little bit of a different story, but you can see where I'm going with this. I think Oklahoma State is, again, going to be the national title favorites because I don't know why anything would change. They're more experienced. They've done it not once. They've done it twice. I could realistically see them running it back, winning a 3rd straight DMR national title with pretty much the same opener and the same anchor. So on the women's side, though, let's chat about the women's DMR, right? Shall we? We bring it back a handful of clicks here. There we go. BYU, I struggle. Could they win again? Yes. It depends on what version of Riley Chamberlain you're going to get. Notre Dame, probably not, because you don't have a superstar juggernaut miler like Olivia Markovic. Florida was third last year, but even that was an upset. I don't know who their miler leg is going to be. I don't feel less confident about some of their legs. I don't see them getting back into it, right? Arkansas, they lost Cochran. I don't really like a ton of their pieces right now. I think Sanu Jallo will probably focus all in on the 800 meters this year. Don't see them being competitive. Oregon will almost certainly be competitive, especially now that they got Julia Cherubet. Gives them a little bit more lineup flexibility in terms of what they can do with certain events and point scoring. Oregon will probably be in the mix. Providence will be in the mix, especially with Alex Millard allowing them some flexibility if they need it. But Flockhart, May, and Millard gives them a lot of flexibility. Oklahoma State, not there yet again. Penn State could certainly find a way to get back into the mix for sure. Stanford could kind of run it back like they did 2 years ago. Washington could find a way to be competitive again, especially now with Mia Cochran. And, I think they bring back Sophie O'Sullivan. I could be wrong there. But the point being is that it's going to be Oregon, it's going to be Washington, it's going to be Providence, and it's going to be BYU, depending on exactly who's in that BYU lineup and who's running exceptionally well, right? And if I had to go right now, I just struggled to see how it's not. Well, I did say we had this conversation earlier with Ben a few weeks ago, and I said Providence. But I think now with Julia Cherubet, it's not necessarily that Cherubet would be like an amazing certain leg on one of these lineups, one of these DMR lineups. I mean, she would, but what I think I really like about her entering Oregon is that she can run the mile, she can run the 3K, and she can be competitive at those levels and potentially a point scorer at the indoor national meet. And in doing so, you kind of allow a little bit more flexibility for who can run on Oregon's DMR, in theory. And so I think now I'm more leaning a bit towards Oregon. Last year they ran Mia Barnett, Ella Clayton, Ella Nelson, and Solana Yildiz. I think they'll put a little bit more firepower behind that group this year, but we'll see. All right, let's go through a few other things here. What else do we want to talk about? Yeah, I guess we should talk about the women's mile, right? There's no Maya Ramsden this year, and there's no Bila Chepkiri this year. Melissa Riggins has not looked quite as strong in the last few months as maybe we would hope she would. Appleton returns, McCabe returns, Kazmierska, Flaminaskol's gone, Congdon, I believe, does return, and Flockhart returns. Those were the 10 women in last year's final. I think picking anyone other than Kimberly May and Claudia Kazmierska would probably be a mistake. Now, some people might want you to put Shannon Flockhart in there, may want you to put Margot Appleton or McCabe. I don't think Chip Curie is going to come back this season. And I don't think Riggins is going to be at the top of her game by then, by March. It's going to be Kazmierska. It's going to be May. I think May is going to probably be the easy, pre-favorite for everyone. But a lot of this is going to come down to, does Kazmierska translate her outdoor track success where she ran 3:59 over 1,500 meters, was an Olympian for Poland this past summer? Does she translate that to the indoor oval? Because if she does, then there's a very good chance that she is maybe just as much, if not more so, a favorite for the indoor national title than May is. And if that happens, then here's my other bold take. The women's mile national record will also fall. I think we're due. I think we're due. The fact that you had 6 women in last year's mile finals break 4:30 is wild. Like that's not just historically fast. That is an all-time fast field. That is maybe the fastest women's mile field that we'll ever remember. In fact, it's actually not even close. It definitely is. And you look at, Caitlin Toohey, her national record is 424.26. Last year, Maya Ramsden, 424.83. And while Maya Ramsden was definitively the best women's miler in the nation last year, like unquestionably, it's not like May was dramatically far behind. It was Maya Ramsden, a gap, Kimberly May, and then a big gap, and then everyone else. That's pretty much how it was. Maybe Bileb Shapkiri was up there at some point, but the point being, if May's able to continue to progress, and she already just ran 428 this past weekend as I'm recording this, I see 424 falling. You're going to tell me that if Kazmierska's just as good on the indoor oval as she was this past spring, and May's already running 428, and we think she's actually even better than she was last year? Yeah, I see it falling. The numbers are just way too in favor of someone running faster than 424. And will it happen at Millrose? Yeah, I think it does. I just think it makes the most sense. So that's my other bold prediction here. All right, what else do we want to talk about? I know we got like the women's 800, men's and women's 3K, 5K. Or I think I already chatted about the women's 3K there. The challenge with just a lot of this, though, is that the challenge with a lot of this is that I feel like we've already spoken about a lot of the longer distances, given what happened at the Boston U season opener with the 3K, with the 5K, given that we just came off of the cross-country season. So, all right, so with that, let's wrap up with 3 names, 3 men, 3 women, who are going to be my names to watch this season. They're not necessarily national title favorites, and they might not even be All-American favorites, but they're just 3 names who I just thought were interesting, names I wanted to highlight, names that I just think are really good sleepers to kind of be monitoring moving forward. Let's start with the women's side. On the women's side, I really, really, really like Allie Ince. Allie Ince is a freshman from Oregon, and she was an elite high school recruit coming out of the high school ranks. She's a true freshman, and she had a sneaky good cross-country season. She was a contributor for the Ducks. I believe she had a really nice cross-country result at Nationals this past fall. I'm actually trying to figure out where I can get a result for that. Let me pull it up. She was 104th for a freshman who has predominantly been known as a middle distance runner. She ran 203 in high school, I believe 435 from the mile in high school as well, but she already ran 432. And I just think I've seen so much good from her. On top of the fact that she was a dynamic elite recruit in high school, the fact that she had so much pedigree, the fact that she's already had great success on the grass despite not being a long distance specialist, the fact that she's already run 432 and seeing how effective she can be when she drops down closer to her primary distance, man, these have all the classic signs, everything that I just talked about, or all the classic signs and traits of someone who has untapped potential, just limitless upside, and someone who I would really be careful about, especially in an Oregon program that is so mile-centric and that has evolved into a program that is beginning to fit more of the skill set that Ince brings to the table. So definitely watch out for Allie Ince. The other name that I like quite a bit is Anaya Mosley, and I don't know how many people here are familiar with her, but she's another middle distance standout. She had a lot of really sneaky good performances throughout last year. She had a decent indoor track season, 443 mile, I think ran 204, maybe 203 over 800 meters. But then, as I pull this up, she went to Penn Relays, won Penn Relays 1,500 meters with 412, a PR then. She then goes to the Big Ten Championships to get second to Haley Kitching over 800 meters. And then goes to the NCAA Outdoor National Meet over 800 meters, advances past a loaded preliminary round, and makes it to the finals, where she places 7th overall. In that prelim, by the way, she ran a PR of 2 flat. And oh, by the way, she was 8th at the Big Ten XC Championships this past fall, and she was 80th at the national meet in cross country. I think she's going to be a juggernaut. Like, I think she's going to be really, really, really good this winter. I could see her running 2 flat this winter. I could see her running like 4:33, 4:32 in the mile. If someone else on Ohio State's team has like a really good season out of nowhere, then you're looking at a potential DMR for Ohio State. And Mosley's going to be the corner piece for that. Mosley's momentum right now is ridiculous. It's arguably just as good as anyone who I've spoken about so far. Maybe more so than Flockhart. I mean, I don't think people realize how good it is to have a 2 flat 800 meter runner get 8th at the Big Ten XC Championships and 80th at the cross country national meet. In fact, as I do a really, really quick look here through some of the names that have run 2 flat or faster for 800 meters, again, I'm doing this somewhat quickly. I don't see anyone other than maybe did Judy Kosky do it? I'm not sure if she did. Gladys Chepnogorich did, so she's, she has the edge there. Maggie Congdon. But that's about it before you kind of get to Anaya Mosley and those national meet results. That's crazy. Anaya Mosley is in the same conversation with women like Chepnogorich and Congdon. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of people who listen to this podcast, and everyone who is familiar with the NCAA middle distance scene, knows how good those women are, especially over 800 meters. So, Melissa Riggins, I think, also has run 2 flat. She's run 2:01, so I could take that back. Moving to my third name, it's Laura Pellicaro. It pained me when we could not include her in the rankings. Very painful. Oh, wait, did we? No, did we really? Oh, here she is. I don't know why I missed her. That was weird. But I think Laura Pellicaro is maybe the most underappreciated distance runner in the NCAA right now. She's in our just missed section of our indoor track rankings for distance runners, but she has been a 2-time top 30 finisher at the NCAA XC Championships, and there's been a third result where she was 41st. So she's more or less 3-time All-American. I know she didn't crack top 40. Work with me here. But then, when she moves to the track, she hasn't lost any turnover. She's run 2:03, 2:42, 4:11. Let me bring this all back with distances. 2:03 for 800 meters, 2:42 for 1,000 meters, 4:11 for 1,500 meters, 4:31 in the mile, and most recently, 8:53 for 3,000 meters. The only challenge right now is that she's had a few issues when it comes to, trying to make it out of the preliminary rounds of the middle distance events, 800 meters, mile, 1,500 meters. I can't help but wonder if she'll more aggressively pursue the 3K, try to run a bit faster, hopefully around 8:50, 8:51, so that way that she's able to advance to the indoor national meet and run in a final, which she has not yet done. And that is, for someone as experienced as her, that's something that's tough to overlook. But I think this is her year. I really do. I mean, that 8:53 mark is arguably the best PR on her resume. It's come most recently. She's had plenty of success as of late. She's an experienced veteran. She has some of the better turnover that you're going to find among longer distance runners, or at least those with competitive 3K marks as fast as hers. I really like what she could do. And so I would probably monitor Laura Pellicaro. She's a name where, does she run 4:29 this year in the mile? Would not surprise me. So, all right, on the men's side, we'll wrap up with the men. Steven Jackson of Boston College. He's a miler. And he had how do I put this? He's been a great miler. And the challenge is that he's only a great miler at select times. And so what I mean by that is back in the winter of 2023, he came out of nowhere, won his heat at the Boston U. John Thomas Terrier Classic in a time of 3:57.7. Broke 4 minutes by a large margin. But then he wasn't a factor at Valentine Invite. He wasn't a factor at ACCs. And then the following spring, again, still not a factor at all. Fast forward to the following winter. Same meet, he runs 356 in the mile. Goes on to run at Boston College, or the New Balance track. No, it was at Boston U. I take that back. Runs 355, beats Parvesh Khan. Now we're looking a little bit more improved. The fourth in the mile finals at the ACC Indoor Championships, fine, but clearly not ready yet to make the finals at the Indoor National meet in the mile. Has to settle out for outside of the prelims. Then he goes to the outdoor national outdoor stage, runs 338 at the East Regional meet for 1,500 meters. 338 is a great mark, but again, still just not there yet to make the finals over 1,500 meters. It's taken a long time, but there is now somewhat consistent and a very subtle but clear trend that Jackson is going to continue to improve. And at this rate, if he does make this next jump this winter, he should be someone that can realistically contend for a spot in the finals come the Indoor National meet. I think him running 355 is, well, he already run 355. I think him running 354, is more probable than not as long as he's healthy and still firing on all cylinders. I think he is, or at least we have no reason to believe he's not. So I just like Jackson. I think he's proven that he's more than a one-race wonder. He's beaten top names. Again, he beat Parvesh Khan last winter. He ran at 338. Like, it's not like these are fluky races. They're just not as frequent. And the good news is that they've become slightly less infrequent over the last few seasons. So I think there's promising long-term growth from him. And I like him potentially playing a big role this winter. My other name here, Simeon Beerbaum. He was a stud, elite high schooler. I mean, when you talk about value, 3-season value, from 800 meters up to the cross-country course, this dude was a stud. 147, sub-4 by comfortable margins. He was outstanding. And I think he was in the 70s at the cross-country national meet this past fall. Let me take a look. Yes. Check here. Where was he? Yes, he was 74th. I think he was already running pretty well this past. No, he actually was out this past spring. I'm getting him confused with someone else. But he ran 7:52 for 3K. Again, 74th at the cross-country national meet. I just believe that he's going to be great. I believe he's going to be really good. I believe he has an outside shot of qualifying for the national meet this year in the mile. And if not, then I can see him being, the anchor for a top half All-American honor in Oregon DMR. Because I think Elliott Cook, as a senior, a veteran, I think he'll probably go for an individual event. If he's even coming back. Does he have eligibility this winter? Elliott Cook, do we know? I love how I'm asking all of you as if you'll be able to respond to me in this very moment. Oh, here we go. Elliott Cook. There we go. He was considered, according to TFERS, last year. Oh, yeah, that's right. He didn't run last year. He ran the mile at Boston U season opener in 2023. He was still a junior anyway, so yeah, he'll come back this year. So Simeon Beerbaum, big fan, like him a lot. And my final name, Camden Marshall. Yeah, Camden Marshall. As you can see, I'm a big middle distance guy when it comes to the track season, even though I hated the middle distances growing up. But Marshall's been a guy who has been very clearly talented for the longest time. Season after season, you can see, like, this is his year. This is his year. And I've said that multiple times, like, this is his year. And then it never really was. But last year, it seemingly was. He was just short of qualifying for the national meet last winter, but then in the spring ran 145 for 800 meters, ran 355 in the mile. He made it to the outdoor national meet and advanced to the finals over 800 meters. He did take 9th place following a trip. debatable whether he would have even been an All-American consideration anyways at that point in the race, but he's been knocking on the door of being a national caliber star for a while. 145 is a huge jump. 355 is right there with some of the other times that you would hope to see out of a guy who has run 145. And he now has national meet experience. He's incredibly experienced, which I know sounds redundant, but I just think that this could be the season where he finally comes through. He emerges as an All-American. He has all the tactical know-how. I just think this is his time. And I've been saying that for the last few years, but the difference is that we had not seen a season from him that was as good or as strong or as convincing as his spring campaign was in 2024. So that is it. It was fun, right? Just bounced around, chatted about a few names. Sorry if we didn't get to your event or didn't mention someone in particular, but we will be having a lot of content now still on the site, especially coming up, right? I'm sure we're going to have a meet preview out for later this weekend. Don't know exactly what that's going to be yet. Probably Washington. Don't know if that's going to be, have to still look at those fields, but going to have a meet preview out there with predictions. We will probably have some kind of transfer market update. There's a lot of different international moves being made, and so still need to monitor and review all of that, confirm that with some sources. Yes, there were a few performances that were pretty notable. Gladys Chipniganich running 239 over 1,000 meters. Kimberly May running 428. Maybe a few others that I missed. Colorado guys ran sub 4 via altitude conversions in the mile. But maybe if I have time, we will put something together later this week. But yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all I got for now. So thank you to everyone who is leaving a rating and review on Apple and Spotify. Please keep doing that. If you're a new listener, it really means a lot to us if you can do that. It helps the algorithm. Appreciate you deeply. And I think that's it. So hopefully we get Ben back next week. But in the meantime, I'll talk to y'all later. See ya.